Hey everybody, Jay Weidner here. Reality check. Thanks for watching and everything. Um, I'm trying to get to 40,000, but I don't know if I'm going to get there. Anyway, got a few things for you today. The first thing I have is an article that I wanted to read to you that I thought was really fascinating. Got this sent by a listener. This is from Gizmodo, and this is May 4th, 2016. Uh, it is called I Accidentally Found a New JFK Assassination Conspiracy Theory, written by Matt Novak. I've never been one, this is the article, I've never been one for JFK assassination conspiracy theories, but I do love studying what movies the presidents watched. So while compiling the list of films that President Kennedy viewed while in the White House, I was surprised to stumble on what seems like fuel for a new conspiracy theory. How did President Kennedy watch a home movie of his son's birthday a week after he was killed? For the past few years, I've been obsessed with compiling a list of every movie that the United States presidents have watched, from Woodrow Wilson to Barack Obama. And so far, I've compiled what I believe to be nearly comprehensive lists for President Jimmy Carter and President Bill Clinton, along with partial lists for everyone else. But while working on President Kennedy's list this past weekend with the help of my wife, we found something strange. It would appear that President Kennedy watched a home movie on November 29th, 1963, which is weird because he was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. I recently acquired copies of the logbooks of the former White House projectionist Paul Fisher from an anonymous source. Fisher recorded every single movie that he projected from the Eisenhower administration to the middle of the Reagan administration. And the Kennedy logbook is fascinating. And the Kennedy logbook is a fascinating artifact, giving insight into not only what movies the first family watched, but who they had as guests and how many people were in attendance. As you can see from the logbook above, he doesn't show it, a film was screened at the White House on November 29th, 1963 for 20 people. Fisher wrote it down as Little John Birthday Party, presumably referring to John F. Kennedy Jr., born on November 25th, 1960. There are two weird aspects to this entry. The first is that the studio is listed as MGM. I doubt that a major Hollywood studio produced Little John's birthday film. The second, and obviously most important, is that both President Kennedy and the First Lady were listed as being in attendance. See those little X's? Those are for JFK and Jackie O. As I said, I'm not really a Kennedy assassination conspiracy buff. There are all kinds of theories about who actually killed Kennedy in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963. Did Lee Harvey Oswald act alone? Was the CIA involved? Was Lyndon B. Johnson on the grassy knoll with a ray gun? I have no idea, but I do know that this logbook is strange. We might be able to chalk it up as Fisher being exhausted and confused, or maybe it was written in advance, though that seems unlikely given the meticulous nature of his record keeping. Maybe Lyndon B. Johnson, the president that would succeed Kennedy, attended the movie screening and Fisher ticked the box for him. I really don't know. And unfortunately, we can't ask the projectionist. Fisher died in 2007, his wife died in 2013, and his son died in 2011. To my knowledge, his daughter is still living, but she hasn't returned a letter to what I believe is her house. If you have a theory, please let me know. Did JFK somehow survive and live out his life under an assumed name in Cuba? That seems unlikely given the autopsy photos, but it probably wouldn't be the weirdest conspiracy theory out there. So there you go. And on the White House archives, he discovers that JFK attended a film of his son's birthday, which, by the way, was the same day as the funeral, oddly enough. I did not even know that until I found that article. And speaking of JFK, that's where I want to go next. So I'm going to give a little history lesson here, and I hope you don't mind, but I think it pertains to what's going on today. So just bear with me. Most of you don't know this history, but it starts at the beginning of our revolution with John Paul Jones and the creation of the United States Navy. Um, Up until the creation of the Air Force, we really only had two military branches, the Army and the Navy. The Navy, each of them had their own intelligence agencies. The Navy's intelligence agency was the more robust because they had the boats. They could go out all over the world and see what's going on and have for intelligence gathering. So um, the Navy became the premier intelligence agency of our country from almost the inception of the Constitution until 1947. In 1947, they created the CIA. And the CIA was created to group all of the military intelligence agencies together and civilian under one roof so that they didn't miss anything. I think that was the reason. Anyway, the Navy, probably the Army, I don't know. I only know the Navy. The Navy was not happy with the creation of the CIA. And they were very reticent to turn over all their files. The CIA was requesting that all the intelligence agencies give it all their files to them so they can collate it, put it together in one centralized area, which is not a bad idea, by the way. But the Navy didn't want to do that because I would guess they had a whole bunch of secrets, and they didn't want anybody to know about these secrets. I mean, you can imagine you've gone. You're the only power in the world that has the boats that can go everywhere. So you know where everything is. You know where nobody can hide from you. Keeping all of this secret so that in case of there's a war, you can use this intelligence to your advantage. Perfectly reasonable. So in 1947, when the CIA was created, they began requesting these files from the Navy, and the Navy did not want to do it. So the Navy bureaucratically resisted these requests, giving out a little bit at a time. And Navy was really suspicious. Naval intelligence was really suspicious of the CIA. And they didn't know what they were doing. I mean, not saying that the CIA didn't know what they're doing. The Navy didn't know what the CIA was doing, and um, and they were curious. What were they up to? What were they doing? And so after 13 years of the creation of the CIA, um, Office of Naval Intelligence, I believe, this is all speculation, but I believe it's really good speculation, decided to send in one of their own, see what was going on. And that would be JFK. So in 1960, JFK won the election and got installed. And immediately he and Bobby Kennedy, his brother, began figuring out what was going on. And they discovered, of course, that the mob and the CIA had married each other in the 50s for convenience reasons. And they discovered that the CIA was busy inside the confines of America, which was outlawed in their charter. They found out a lot. And no doubt this was all fed back into Office of Naval Intelligence because I believe that they put Kennedy in there for the sole reason of finding out what was going on. And if you can, stop it if it's bad. And it was. And he couldn't stop it. And you're going to. So now this begins. So with Kennedy, with the two presidents before him during the CIA would be Truman and then Eisenhower. Truman, they just started with Truman, and Eisenhower was a general, was his own man, and they weren't going to have anything to be able to push Eisenhower around. Nobody was because he was a four-star general, or was he five-star? Anyway, so so Kennedy's reign was very short, 3 years. And either, if you believe my theory, he escaped with his life from these exact forces that we're talking about, or, he was shot or killed by somebody. Either way, they got rid of Kennedy. So now the CIA is working. They know that their rival, the naval intelligence guys, have a lot of information that they hope that they would never find. especially the ties to the mob. So they make sure that the next guy in, Johnson, is completely in their domain. So Johnson, so now we begin a succession of weird dances between the Office of Naval Intelligence and the CIA, as far as presidents are concerned. So it's Kennedy as ONI, then Johnson as CIA, and then Nixon. At first, you don't know what to make of him. He did serve in the Navy, in the Naval Reserve, and he did serve in World War II. And he served like pretty much like anybody that would join the Navy at the time. And he didn't last long, just like Kennedy. He was out on his fifth year, and he was taken out. Clearly, if you know the real truth behind Watergate, you know that it was a complete CIA removal of him. That all the guys, the burglars, were CIA. Everybody was. Everybody stabbed Nixon in the back. I'm not a big fan of Nixon or anything, although he did get us out of Vietnam. And but he was, I believe, again, put in there by naval intelligence to do exactly the same thing that Kennedy was to do, and just dig out, figure out what's going on. And he was taken out, just like Kennedy was taken out, because the CIA doesn't want the Office of Naval Intelligence in the presidency mucking around and finding stuff out. All right. So then we, after Nixon, we have Ford, and Ford worked for the CIA and the FBI and the Warren Commission, and he's probably CIA. And he lasted, what, 2 years, and he wasn't really even elected. Was it 2 years, 3 years? He was never elected. No one ever cast a vote for him. The only president no one cast a vote for. He has a very interesting background, by the way. His very interesting. One day I'll get into the presidents, interesting backgrounds of presidents, and it's really, really amazing. So then Jimmy Carter is the next president. Jimmy Carter served in the Navy. Jimmy Carter served in the Office of Naval Intelligence. He was, again, a naval plant into the presidency. And he hires Admiral Stansfield Turner to run the CIA, which just infuriated the CIA because now they got somebody who, the top of their agency, who's ONI. And after a couple of years, Stansfield Turner purged the CIA of hundreds of people. I believe it's called the Halloween Night Massacre. And this gave rise, by the way, this Halloween Night Massacre, where he fired a couple hundred CIA people. They went off and created their own clandestine intelligence agency, which we later know as the Iran-Contra thing, Ollie North and all that. That's his clandestine, off the books, funneling drug money and arms money in, and using that as a clandestine group. But that they kind of have now faded away. So then Jimmy Carter decides to free the hostages in Iran and sends a bunch of helicopters and commandos over. And clearly Iran was waiting for him and shot them all down. Somebody told Iran they were coming. And I mean, it would have to be whoever is the rival of the Office of Naval Intelligence, you would think, that would want to get Carter out, because that incident is exactly what everybody just, after that, nobody wanted Carter to be president. He was just like a loser. And it was a terrible tragedy and all of that. So then the next guy who beats Carter is Reagan. And people say, oh, is Reagan ONI or is Reagan CIA? Well, this is the crux of the history point now, 1980. Really, it'll be 1981. So Reagan is at the convention and he's about to get nominated. And pretty much it's known that the CIA came in and said, you can run for president, but you got to have George Bush, head of the CIA, just right, earlier, as your running mate. And so Reagan reticently chose George Bush, former head of the CIA, to be his vice president. About 2 months after he gets into office, a business partner of the above the son of a business partner of the above mentioned vice president attempted to shoot Reagan, shot him 3 times. And we can get into that some other time. I can't remember the guy's name. John Chancellor. There was a news anchor named John Chancellor. I'm glad I remember that. And the night of the Reagan shooting, I'll never forget, he was on reading the news and he said, "Oh, and the shooter, John Hinckley, is the son of a business partner of George Bush." And he looked off the camera and went, "Are you kidding me?" Like, couldn't believe it. And and at that point, I believe that's when the CIA completely took over. And the reason I say that is because we never have another ONI president. So the next president is, of course, um, Clinton, and he's a Rhodes Scholar. It's well known that he's CIA. And when he was going to, I believe, Oxford, that he was doing all sorts of intelligence work and everything and all that. He's CIA. And then, of course, the next one is George W. Bush, who's Skull and Bones, and his dad is the head of the CIA. So it's clear he's not in the Office of Naval Intelligence, he's in the CIA. And then the next one is Obama, and he's also CIA. His mom was probably in the CIA. She served in Indonesia. It looked like she was doing some kind of intelligence work. And also because the CIA didn't have any black African American members when the black nationalist movement started rising up in the 50s. They had no one to infiltrate their organization, so they used white women. And she may have been one of those white women that were infiltrating in, because I mean, you look at her list of boyfriends, they're all very prominent, radical African Americans. So anyway, I believe Obama's also CIA. And so now things get interesting. So we have news stories breaking out that Obama ordered the CIA to go after Trump in 2016. And they did. And we can see all the things that are going on with Trump, all the prosecutions and all of this and all of that. I think some of us have to step back and go, this is a little over the top. I mean, I don't know if he really did all this stuff, but this is kind of over the top. Why are they um, rejecting precedents and creating new ground, and so that it's going to be more dangerous for any other presidents, or nobody's going to want to ever run for office, and it just seems so fraught with stupidity and danger. Well, what most people don't realize is that a man came to Trump in 2015 and told Trump that he represented a group of military people that wanted Trump to run for president. Now, Trump didn't serve in the Navy or in the military at all, but this person did. This person was Steve Bannon, and it was Steve Bannon, former Navy officer, probably ONI, and all representing ONI are the ones who are behind Trump. That's what I believe now. And that's kind of why I think Trump acts like he's not that worried, because he knows he has a gigantic, huge um, intelligence agency behind him, an intelligence agency that does not like his enemies. And I believe the CIA knows that, because they know that Bannon asked him to run. And so they know that this is that they thought they had successfully, since Jimmy Carter, since 1980, what is that? 36 years, they had successfully fended off these other candidates, although I don't know if they're even tried. And then now they got one and he got in. And what did Trump do? Well, he did exactly what Nixon and Kennedy and Carter did. He started going in and seeing what's going on here. That's why they went after his records in Mar-a-Lago. He's got all the records, and hopefully he copied them. And and uh, and that's what's going on right now. And so we have two battling intelligence agencies, And this battle's been going on since 1947. And it's now getting to the point where it's going to get seriously heated. And we don't want to do anything violent or anything. Please don't. Don't let whatever they call us or try to do, just try to be cool. That's the main thing. We don't want any violence in our country at all. I'm just pointing out this historical anomaly that we did until 1980 have a succession of agencies, the two agencies giving us presidential candidates off and on until finally the one side got all of them until the other side said, hey, wait a minute, you know, they've been in power a long time. We have no idea what they're really doing. And so they put Trump in, and then he got the records, and that's why they're freaking out because now the rival agency, the rival intel agency, now has all the goods. That's why Trump can never come back because now he'll look at the other stuff that's going on in the last 4 years. So I don't know where this ends. I just know that it's a close approximation of what's going on. My dad was in the Navy, he fought over in Japan, and I've always been partial to the Navy, and and I know a lot of guys that the most patriotic people I know are in the Navy, and it's just interesting as hell, I think. Anyway, that's all I have to tell you. We're all going to wait and see how this comes out. It's going to be really fascinating. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jay Weidner, Reality Check, and I really do appreciate you watching.